Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
And top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And joining me after my return and several weeks' absence from our program is the former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Faraz.
And thank you very much for being on our program.
You are welcome.
Let me get straight to the point. The financial circles, the public, they're all very much concerned at this astonishing set of two sets of information. One is the published accounts of a company called Perpetual Treasuries, which is a primary dealer in the central banking in the system there. And the other is a leaked draft board paper, which is supposed to be the findings of the on-site examination of a report apparently done by the Department of Supervision of Non-Banking Financial Institutions. It's something that Member of Parliament Vimal Weerawansa referred to a couple of days ago, and also has been available widely on the World Wide Web. First of all, I'd like to ask, I understand that this is kind of a leaked document, but what are the chances of it being authentic?
Well, for us now, the particular document you are referring to, we still don't know whether it's an authentic document or not. It is in the website as you have mentioned, but the fact is that even after 3 days, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has neither denied nor accepted the existence of this document.
Right.
So what we have to therefore believe is that it may be a document which should have originated from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. But I have to mention here, Faraz, if you go by the procedures in the Central Bank, with respect to such on-site examinations, the particular document has been leaked to the public domain in halfway through because it has not gone through the entire procedure. Because the procedure, if I explain to you, is that
what is that procedure?
Because the on-site examinations are conducted by the supervisory officers of the Central Bank. They go to the particular company, examine books.
Oh, so the on-site means on-site.
On-site, they go to the company. They go to the company. They compare the books with the data that they have reported to the Central Bank,
right,
and examine each and every transaction. And if they find that there is any irregular transaction, they go into details of that, and they come back to the Central Bank and they file a report.
Right.
And that report is vetted in the Department for Non-Bank, for the supervision of the non-bank financial institutions at 2 levels.
Right.
First, it will be vetted by the Deputy Director in charge of the particular operation in the department. Then it will be vetted by the Director in charge of the department.
Right.
After they have approved of it, the regulatory concerns are notified to the client, the Perpetual Treasuries, so that they can respond to the regulatory deficiencies that have been identified in the on-site examination. Then there is one-on-one meeting with the Perpetual Treasuries directors, and then Perpetual Treasuries will come up with their own explanations about the deficiencies which had been identified by the examiners. And finally, the report is finalized and then it is submitted to the Assistant Governor in charge of the department.
Right.
After the Assistant Governor has approved of it, then it is submitted to the Deputy Governor in charge of the department.
Right.
Once the Deputy Governor has approved it, then only it goes as a board paper to the board.
Right.
Now, in this particular instance, what I find is that it has not gone through the steps that I have mentioned here. Probably even the Deputy Director, it doesn't show that there is any evidence that even the Deputy Director has seen it. So, there are 3 or 4 other steps which have to be gone there, but of course, for us now, since the matters related to this Perpetual Treasuries has become very critical at this particular point of time, the central bank should have done all these steps simultaneously so that you can fast track, bring the report to the notice of the monetary, because if you delay even by one day, what would happen is if you go through the findings in the report, the damage done to the financial systems of the country would have been much more. So therefore, they could have done all the steps
for doing it,
all the steps simultaneously, fast track it and bring it to the monetary board's notice immediately, because it is just like a tsunami coming to Sri Lanka and you can't wait.
Yeah.
So that is where, but of course I have gone through the report for us, and I find that is one of the finest examination reports that I have seen in the central bank through my life.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Actually, two things spring to mind, but first of all, do you think that this was done with the knowledge of the former governor, Arjuna Mayan? Obviously it was done during his time.
Yeah, actually it has started, I think, sometime in September last year by the Public Debt Department. But according to central banking sources, the job done by the Public Debt Department has not been very professional. Therefore, the regulatory function of primary dealers had been transferred from the Public Debt Department to the Department for the Supervision of the Non-Bank Financial Institutions,
right,
during Mr. Mahendra's time. But I don't know whether the report was started with his knowledge or without his knowledge, because that particular aspect we are not privy to that information for us.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, it has been done by the professional staff of the central bank, and that professional staff should be congratulated by everybody for coming up with a very professional and fine report without fear and favor. So that is what we have to recognize here.
Indeed, that was going to be my second point. Isn't it marvelous that, of course, frustration has bred the concept of whistleblowing. What it pays to bear in mind is that the central bank, the officers there are extremely well educated, well trained, and professionalism has been like the key word there. And in a country where corruption is endemic, where getting things done at any level is fraught with delay and difficulty, it is within that sort of ambience, within that savanna, the actions of the officers of the central bank is such a welcome oasis. It's wonderful and a great pleasure to have such professionalism.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to say thank you, because obviously they've been kept down, they've been transferred here, transferred there. Some of those transfers are still in place, and people have been moved from pillar to post. Frustration has been bred there, and I think, do you think that they've been angry?
In fact, banking supervisor cannot be angry for us, because they have to be objective, impartial, and they have to come up with, actually it's an evidence-based examination.
Yeah.
So the report actually reveals that the people who have done this, prepared this report, examined the report, have gone into the details of the evidence, and they have recorded that evidence, and they have presented the evidence for anyone to make a reasonable judgment about how the perpetual treasuries had been performing during the last 15-month period, and how they had been making money when they didn't have actually a resource base of their own, by borrowing from the central bank itself. Because what happened was, there was a monetary policy anomaly done during Governor Mahendra's time.
Yeah.
He reduced the interest rates in the country from 8% to 7.5% in order to promote the economic activities. That was what the central bank said in its monetary policy statement. Then immediately the independent analysts criticized the central bank for conducting this anomalous type of monetary policy because market interest rates were pretty much higher than what the central bank had decided. It gives opportunities for people to borrow at low interest rates from the central bank and lend in the market at high interest rate, which we call arbitrage.
Yes.
The supervisory team had found the perpetual treasuries had made money simply out of the money they have borrowed from the central bank. They have abused the intraday liquidity facility where they can borrow at 7.5%.
Yeah.
Reverse repo facility they can borrow at 7.5%, about 5 to 6 billion rupees. And they have lent to the government of Sri Lanka at 10 to 11%. So you can see it has given an opportunity for a particular enterprising primary dealer to make money when he didn't have a sufficient resource base, and the report has highlighted that kind of practice has to be stopped immediately because it gives a bad signal to the market, because the market will simply think that borrowing from someone else and going into this speculative type of transactions is accepted in the marketplace. So that is why the report has highlighted that it should be stopped immediately and investigated.
So I want to ask two questions here. The first question is, this is like, sounds to me, when you were explaining this, sounds to me like a classic Marmai Banai situation.
Similar to that, yes. Actually, it is similar to that because what has happened is now when the central bank has reduced the interest rate from 8.8% to 7.5%, naturally for us we expect that the government interest rates on government securities should also come down. But according to the findings of the examination report, interest rates on government securities has increased after the reduction of the interest rate by the central bank, which is completely which has gone completely in the opposite direction.
So it's like it is as clear as black and white.
It is black and white. I mean, the report has completely. They have given a graph there in the report that interest rates have moved up.
Right.
So which is an anomaly. And because it started to happen for us in September in 2015.
Right.
And when this had happened, the Monetary Board should have immediately taken note of that and done remedial action, because but unfortunately the interest rates in the government securities have started going up. In fact, by about 5%. We call it 500 basis points. And it's a cost to the government.
And that is what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to ask you, all this talk and misunderstanding that the events of that bond issue and the various things that happened thereafter and that has been happening there, that these are not merely notional losses.
No, not notional losses, because
the cost of borrowing actually did go up.
The government's cost of borrowing. What happens is, for us, when the interest rates go up, the price of the bonds will go down. For example, if the government can sell a bond to a member of the public for 100 rupees, it has to now sell below 100 rupees. So the government has to give a deep discount to the investor, which is a loss, immediate loss. Because the government could have got 100 rupees by selling the bond, but now the government is getting, say, something like 75 rupees or 78 rupees. So it's a deep discount which the government has given as a result of the interest rates going up in the market. Now these are the anomalies which the Monetary Board would have noted at that particular point of time and taken prompt action to stop it. But it didn't happen.
And that was going to be my second question. Do you think they've been asleep, the Monetary Board? What have they been doing? In
fact, the Monetary Board had not been, in my opinion, because I have been watching over the conduct of the Monetary Board for the last 4 to 5 years, and I have found, for us, Monetary Board members had not been performing their duty by the nation. Because their duty has been, because they are independent officers, members, and they cannot be removed by the government, and they are not serving the government in power, and they are serving the people of the country. And their job is to protect the value of the money held by people. And
Yes.
if they don't perform that duty by the nation, then they have failed the nation.
So, and what can the people do?
We have to highlight. I mean, in other countries like the Bank of England, the monetary board meetings are also revealed to the members of the public forum. There's a full transparency, and therefore whatever the discussions that they do in the monetary board meeting, they are actually revealed to the members of the public. Therefore, the members of the public, media and analysts can know what kind of discussion that has taken place within the monetary board meetings. But in Sri Lanka, we don't have that kind of a transparency. In fact, in the recently enacted Right to Information Act, the central bank's particular monetary policy, financial policy, exchange rate policy have been classified as exempted subjects on which the members of the public cannot get any information until that particular information has lapsed for a period of 10 years.
I can see that the effects are patently and blatantly unfair.
Unfair.
Because the members of the public, that's their money, and they can't find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And because they can't find out what's going on, members of the families inside there have
They can make
now it is revealed, has been benefited. And how can you have notional losses when it's followed by real profit?
Yeah, that's no notional loss. I mean, when the interest rates actually go up and the market price of a bond goes down, as I explained to you, Faraz, the government has to give a deep discount. I mean, when the government can issue a bond at par for 100 rupees, and if it gets only, say, 75 to 80 rupees per bond, the government immediately loses 20 rupees. So this is not a notional loss, and in fact it's a matter for the Minister of Finance to look into, because it's the Minister of Finance ultimately, he has a liability for 100, but he gets only 80 rupees for the money that he has actually issued. So it's not a notional loss.
I want to, the Ministry of Finance introduced this super gain tax, or proposed the introduction in 2015 in their interim budget, and it said that it would be a one-off payment, and accordingly at the time it said that any company or individual who has earned profits of over 2 billion in the year 2013-14 would be liable to pay 25% of their profit. It then went on to say that this will help reverse the ill-gotten gains of these companies back to the general public. The expected revenue would be 50 billion. Well, what I want to ask is, I don't know whether this is ill-gotten, and it's probably not ill-gotten because it's gone through a certain process. But when that process reveals that out of this industry, which is like 16 primary dealers, and out of the total profits made by that closed group, 83% is with one company, and the balance is with the others. Just to put it in perspective, the company that came second had profits, it says, of 57 million. The company that came first had profits of 5,200 million. It's nearly 10 times more than the number two. And what I want to say is that to me that suggests a very anomalous situation. It appears to be completely and utterly one-sided. And therefore, that is the question. That is the suspicion of a conflict of interest.
In fact, Farhad, the numbers you have quoted, you have actually referred to the published data, but the numbers that have been reported in the leak report is much more than that.
Much more. It is
from April 2015 to May 2016.
Yes.
This particular company has made after-tax profit of 10 billion rupees, not 5.2 billion, 10 billion rupees. And but because in the primary dealer market, Farah, there are two types of institutions.
Yeah.
One type is called institutional investors like Bank of Ceylon, People's Bank, National Savings Bank,
Yeah.
and all the commercial banks. The other type is called standalone primary dealers,
Yeah.
who are individual companies like the perpetual treasuries. Now, of the standalone primary dealers, during that particular period, from April 2015 to May 2016, they have made a net loss.
Right.
Whereas the perpetual treasuries has made
106%.
10 billion, profit of 10 billion rupees during that particular period. So, the institutions like the Bank of Ceylon, it has a portfolio of more than 100 billion in government securities. But still it has made a profit of about, say, 150 million rupees. Very small profit compared to the 10 billion profit made by the perpetual treasuries. So, as you have said, the report itself has highlighted the fact, and it has requested the monetary board to appoint an independent committee of inquiry to look into the extraordinary profits made by the perpetual treasuries, to find out whether such profits have been made by resorting to irregular and improper practices. In fact, the three institutions the report has identified that being the Employees Provident Fund, then the PABC Bank, and also the DFCC Bank, and it has been presented in the report, and to find out whether there have been irregularity in making this high level of profits. And of course, there's a detailed list of the bids made by the perpetual treasuries, significantly above the prevailing market interest rates, and that also has to be investigated according to the report that has been prepared by the central bank.
If I was given 3 words to describe this whole thing, I would choose the same word to be repeated 3 times, and that would be shame, shame, and shame. Because this is an absolute shame. It is shameless what has happened.
It's not only a shame for us, because in any financial market, the credibility of the market depends on how far we have been able to allow the market participants to play a fair game. If there is not a fair game, and if there is an opportunity for a given market participant to make an extraordinary amount of money by resorting to some unethical practices, what happens is the people lose confidence in the financial system of the country. And financial system is the backbone of any economy. And now we are planning to actually convert the port city into an international financial hub.
Yes.
And we are expecting the foreign companies to come and invest in the financial hub here. But when they find out that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the government of Sri Lanka have been tolerating unethical and improper practices done by a particular group of companies, what would happen is that the government will not be able to attract good investors to the particular financial hub that they are going to set up in the port city. So, which is a very damaging situation for the future of Sri Lanka, because according to the Minister of Finance, the particular financial hub is expected to accelerate Sri Lanka's economic growth by about 2 to 3% per annum. And he will not be able to realize this target when at the back door of the Minister of Finance there are certain people who are resorting to unethical practices, and they can continue to do these unethical practices.
Right.
So that has to be stopped at any cost.
Obviously, some of our viewers are reading your mind, because one of the questions they've just sent through is, what would this whole scenario be? What would the international impact be?
International impact is, as I told you, for us now, of course you would have noted, the first financial crisis in 2007-2008 was brought about by scandalous transactions done by leading financial institutions in USA. And the cost of that particular financial crisis is still being borne by the rest of the world.
Yes.
And in Sri Lanka's case, we are planning to get ourselves integrated to the rest of the world and becoming a part and partner of the global financial economy. That is what we are planning to do. But if we do not have a proper regulatory mechanism within Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's credit rating will be downgraded. People outside Sri Lanka will suspect that Sri Lanka is a place where people can rob money belonging to other people. And as a result, and with impunity, that's the problem. As a result, we may not be able to realize the full potential which the government is now planning to gain through the conversion of the port city into a financial hub. In fact, the particular leaked report has highlighted the case of this Entrust, another primary dealer, who had actually robbed, according to the market source, about 12 billion worth of money belonging to the members of the party. Now, similar case they say can happen in the case of perpetual treasuries also, because they don't record the transactions in the names of the people who have provided money to the perpetual treasuries.
Could that also be an aspect of money laundering?
Money, in fact, you can do anything. I mean, not only money laundering for us. If the source of the money is not recorded, and if the ownership is not properly recorded in the central bank, central depository system, money can be robbed by anyone.
Very quickly, as we come to the end of our morning, I'd like to ask this. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, they have rules that when they do a drug investigation and there's prosecution, that all the assets that have resulted as a result of this illegal activity will be seized. And it's one of the biggest successes. The DEA own helicopters, private jets, buildings all over the world, because these were assets of these drug barons or these drug lords. Can't we have something similar here? Because, Mr. Wijewardena, I noticed that 10% of NDB Bank has been purchased by interest people who are linked to, or companies linked or connected to Perpetual. Now, I find that an absolute anomaly. Here you are using the public's money by resorting to these, as we referred earlier, the cheap borrowing of money from the central bank, and then you use the same money out there, which is the public's money. It's an abuse of the system. Then you make money. You're using the public's money to enrich yourself. You then go and invest it in a bank like NDB, and everybody thinks in a few years' time, oh, you're very, very smart. You own 10% of the bank. I think that if it can be proven that all these monies were resulting from this sacrilegious bond scam, then steps should be taken to recover those assets.
In fact, for us, we have laws in Sri Lanka to that effect, because the particular report has recommended that the financial intelligence unit of the central bank will have to look into the bank accounts of this particular company, bank accounts of the directors of the company, bank accounts of the senior managers of this company, so that if there is any irregularity done in the financial operations, the money can be actually seized by the state. There's a possibility.
Mr. Wijewardena, thank you very, very much indeed for being on Newsline. It's been an absolute revelation. And thank you. I hope that you write some articles to explain all the little nitty-gritties that goes on in the central bank and in this system. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having watched Newsline. Have a great weekend ahead of you, and take care, and see you again here on Monday. Take care. God bless.